Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of On the Spot Sports. I'm Jack, and I'm along with,
Tyler from On the Spot Sports.
and we are joined by our good friend Andrew Freeman, who's also been on the podcast before. Andrew, how are you doing?
Doing good, guys. Glad to be on again. Hope everyone's healthy. Hope everyone's staying safe. Ready to talk a little bit of NFL free agency.
Yeah, for sure. It's an important time to stay safe right now, stay healthy, but hopefully this will create a little bit of a distraction. So let's get on with this NFL free agency episode. So Tyler, take it away.
So as you guys probably already know, the NFL free agency is about to begin. The new league year was announced today that it will start on time. This Wednesday is the technical starting date. And for free agency, players can start negotiating with teams technically starting tomorrow, even though we've already had a lot of deals take place. They can't sign anything until the new league year starts on Wednesday. And so I've been dying for this episode for a long time because this is one of the most chaotic free agency years that we will ever anticipate and see. And so I think talking about it with Andrew, he knows a lot about the NFL and a lot of other sports, but I think particularly football, I know he's had some great opinions back on our show a couple months ago, and I can't wait to talk about it with you guys. Having him on again is awesome. And, I think that's pretty much it. We're going to recap some of the preview some of the big names that are hitting the market this year and where we think they'll end up. So I can't wait, guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one because especially since there's a lot of good top players in the league right now that's hitting the market. So it'll be interesting to see where they're gonna go.
Yep, can't wait. This is the best time of the year in terms of just all the chaos, especially this season, especially with all the quarterbacks available. That's really going to be the main storyline is really Tom Brady go, Teddy Bridgewater, Philip Rivers, all these guys. Just a lot of options out there, and it's just going to be really crazy.
It's gonna be crazy.
Expect a lot of big deals this year. Expect a lot of ridiculous money with the new CBA. It's gonna be crazy. I can't wait for it. The new CBA, that's right. I have my feelings on it. I think that's something we got to touch base on before we get into it. How do we guys feel about the CBA? Yeah, so I'll start off here. It's interesting because it's really not going to take effect until 2021 and beyond, because for those who don't know, they're going to be adding a 17th game onto the schedule. So the normal 16-game schedule, whether it be 2021 or 2022, at some point they're going to be adding a 17th game on there. And they're also expanding the playoffs. And that's going to be very interesting as well. That might even be starting this upcoming season in 2020. So instead of 6 teams per conference, there's going to be 7 teams per conference. So for teams that would have missed the playoffs last year, I'm looking at the LA Rams and the Pittsburgh Steelers, those teams would have been in the playoffs last season with this type of format. So a lot of interesting stuff there, and how this affects the salary cap free agency. This year, it's not going to really be a lot of more cap space for teams to use, but down the road, right now the cap is at $198 million for each team. Approximately for each team, because you can do a little bit of rollover money for any money that you didn't use last offseason. Going into 2021, though, it's expected that the cap is going to rise up to about $240 million for each team to use, which is a pretty significant boost. So it's just going to be interesting. So from my perspective, that just means to me that a lot of teams are going to be backloading these deals in terms of the salaries and try and take advantage of that. And I expect the salaries to take a major boost for some of these guys that, in normal years, they might not get paid a lot of money, but because teams have a lot more room to spend that money, they're going to be giving out some big contracts to guys that in many other years probably wouldn't get nearly as much money.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that. And this new CBA rule's very interesting because Tyler and I were talking about this earlier in a few episodes ago where we didn't think that was going to get approved. And we overall didn't really like that 17 game schedule, but it got approved for 2021, I believe, and it goes in effect through 2030, I believe it is. So it'll definitely be an interesting new thing, especially with the extended playoffs and like the 17 game schedule, and then like the contracts and like the cap space is gonna be in for an interesting next 10 years or so.
Yeah, I will say right now, I personally am not. If I would have to vote on this CBA, I would majorly vote no, just because I feel like a lot of the stuff we have now, it's perfect. The one thing that's really fresh in my mind right now is the expanding playoffs. Do I have a problem with it? Not really, but the thing that questions me about the expanding the playoff is there wasn't any teams that got expanded into the NFL. So if they let's say they added 2 more teams, I honestly think it'd be a good idea. But the fact that they're adding 2 more teams in when it's still 32 team league, it's kind of questioning because it's been thrown out there. We might see a lot more 8-8 teams make the playoffs than we've seen before, and this is not including division winners last year, like we had the Eagles, the rare occasion. But these wildcard teams, like you said, there's going to be a lot more 8-8 teams that make the playoffs. We're kind of going to be questioning, should they be in, should they be in? But I don't know. Don't blame the team, I guess. Blame the format. It's pretty questionable to me. I'm not a huge fan of it, but going off the other thing, Andrew, you said that the salary cap could raise to $240 million from $198. That was a staggering number. I did not realize it was supposed to be that much. Right off the top of my head, I mean, if this really is true, you're going to see a lot of record-setting deals. Like other positions that we may not see get paid that much, like let's say tight end, maybe cornerback, even tackle, something like that. These guys are going to get paid more and more because teams obviously have a wider range to spend. These guys can easily get these humongous deals that we have not seen from some of these other positions before. And the ones that we have seen, like primarily the quarterbacks and the running backs and the receivers, it's only going to go up even more. So I think this is what some of these guys want. They want bigger paydays. They want their chance to cash in the bank. And it's just interesting that I think a lot of these guys turn that aspect down. And in terms of the 17-game regular season, it is what it is, I guess. I mean, I like the 16 games as it is. 4-game preseason, kind of figure it all out. It is what it is. I'm not like a huge no-go for it. It is what it is. But the one question I have is, what are they going to do with that final opponent? Because it's pretty evened out. You play each year 3 division teammates or rivals twice. That's 6. You get a whole AFC division. That's 10 right there. And then you get a whole division from the NFC or your conference. That's 14. And then the other 2 teams that placed the same spot that you did the previous year, that's 16. So I'm just wondering what they're going to do for that. Like, how are they going to determine the other opponent that you get in the regular season? But that's just my general thing. A lot of these superstars have came out and said they don't like it, which, again, it kind of surprised me. But there's just a little bit too much that would put me for no.
Yeah, I mean, with the 17th game, I mean, for me, I'm a purist all the way. I think the 16-game, 6 playoff team format for every team each conference is perfect. Is really perfected. I mean, the one problem with other major sports leagues, such as the NBA and to an extent the NHL, is the fact that half of the league or so is able to get into the playoffs. So it doesn't make it as special to get to the playoffs. And the thing about the NFL, and one of the advantages that they have here is getting to the playoffs is a big accomplishment for a lot of these teams. It's very tough to get there, especially with injuries and all things that can happen. The amount of games that are there. So it's the extra game. And I really don't know how they're going to pull that off. To me, there's only 2 options they can really do. The first one would be to have a rivalry game, interconference rivalry game for each team that they do each year on a neutral site. I don't know how they would pull that off, but they would have to do something either like that, or the other way to do it, just do every year kind of interplay, you know, whether an NFC team's going to have 9 road games a year or whether an AFC team's going to have 9 road games a year, kind of just interweave that every single year. That's going to be interesting how they schedule it. Again, I think the 16-game format is perfect, so I'm not a big fan of the 17-game move there, but I understand it. They want to get a little bit more revenue there, and that's going to impact these contracts, like you said. I'm looking at it here. You look at some of the top guys on the market this year. I think it's very possible that a quarterback such as Dak Prescott's going to have to get upward of maybe $40 million per year because, you know, most of these GMs, they don't really look at the dollar amount. They look at the cap hit percentage for these contracts and how much percentage each player is taking up on their cap sheet. So when the cap rises up to $240 million, which is what the expectation is, again, you're going to see a lot of numbers rise in terms of the free agent market for what they're getting on the open market. So I look at guys like Jadeveon Clowney, who's out there in free agency. You're going to get upwards of $22 million per year out on the open market because of that. He's going to try to reset the market even, which is going to be hard to do because, you know, he plays the same position as Khalil Mack, who is making about $26 million a year right now. But that's going to be tough for him to do there. But you know, I look at some of the other guys, Byron Jones, cornerback from the Cowboys. He's probably looking at maybe $20 million per year as a cornerback. I mean, there's going to be some crazy numbers thrown out this year that we're not used to seeing. And that makes things exciting because you're going to see a lot of fans out there going to be second-guessing all the big numbers that we're seeing. It's going to look a lot more like, if you guys remember, the NBA 5 or so years ago when the cap exponentially rose a few seasons ago. We saw all of these big contracts being given out to even just average players. We're going to be seeing the exact same thing happen here in the NFL, this new CBA.
Yeah, for sure. And I found all those points really, really interesting. I like what you were saying there. And going back to, like, the 17-game schedule for, like, that, like, 17th game, I really like the idea of that rivalry game on a neutral site. It'd just be like, just make it a little more fun, especially since you don't have like a home field advantage. It'll be like on a neutral site, so like that'd be interesting. It'd be nice to see like a Bears-Packers game again, even though they play twice in the season. Giving another game, that'd be interesting as well.
Yeah, anything to spice up this regular season, I think it's always a good move to go. But that's going to be the main challenge, I think, with this new CBA.
Yeah. Tyler?
Yeah, I think the one thing, though, that people might not be too depressed about or whatever is the 3-game preseason. That's the one thing that I think people wouldn't really mind because people have really come out and said that nobody really plays the starters in preseason. So I think that might be the one positive is, hey, less preseason. Maybe, more regular season. So yeah, I think if some guys would look at the bright side, maybe that.
No, I love that. Less in the preseason. I mean, most of these games are pretty much useless anyway. You know, the coaches only need one game of actual film to see these guys in action to evaluate these guys. I mean, most of their evaluations are done in training camp. So I'm all for less in the preseason, less injuries for main contributors. You know, even though a lot of teams are resting their starters anyway in the preseason, you know, all the preseason is just extra revenue from the owners anyway. So, I mean, I think lessening the preseason, getting us to the main action right away, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. If one less preseason game is going to do anything bad to the league or the game. It's just gonna, like you said, it's just for the owners to get more money, more revenue, and as everyone knows, no one really tries during preseason. Like, all the starters are pretty much not playing, so it makes a lot more sense to just play 3 preseason games and just get on with the regular season.
Yeah, I think it's about that time now. I think CBA, I think we pretty much covered everything. So I think you too. So what do we say? We get down to the free agency.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I was gonna do like a format for this, but I feel like that'd be a little bit too much. I think what we should do is pretty much perfect. I think we just come up with a guy that's obviously a free agent on the top of our mind, and then we all say, like, we all go around and say, oh, where do we think he'll go and whatnot. So I think that sounds pretty good. I really wanted to save this guy for last, but I feel like with everything that's happened today, it's just going to heat up even more. So I'll go first. I'm going to start off with none other than probably the biggest free agent out there this year, Tom Brady, the quarterback for the New England Patriots. We had some major news break this morning that really, really changed the game around for him. Going into that, actually, the Tennessee Titans re-signed quarterback Ryan Tannehill to a 4-year, $118 million deal. And I think, not really shocked, but it surprised a lot of people because a lot of people were saying that Tom Brady to the Titans was probably the most likely destination if he does not return to New England. So now that Tennessee has found their franchise quarterback for the future, where does old Tommy go? And honestly, I had a prediction a while ago that he was going to go to the Los Angeles Chargers, but I don't really think that's going to happen right now. So for me personally, I really thought that the Titans were the one team that could lure Brady away from New England, but now Tennessee locking up Tannehill, I really want him to go, but I don't think it's going to happen now that Tennessee re-signed Tannehill. So I got to go with the Patriots. And I know they lack a lot of offensive weapons and what he wants money-wise, but the people love him there. He might realize that, hey, man, if I go out on a high note, these guys are going to love me forever. I'm a living legend. And despite, like I said, what they have, I know he still has that fighting spirit. He's going to ride off into sunset in Foxborough. I cannot see any situation out with him leaving.
Yeah, it's really surreal to imagine Tom Brady playing in another uniform. Me personally, it's hard to imagine that scenario happening, but I think it's actually a lot more of a 50-50 proposition than a lot of people are going to want to make. I know a lot of Patriots fans aren't going to want to hear this, but I think there's a real possibility that Brady leaves this offseason. The Tannehill news was interesting. He got a big deal for the Tennessee Titans, and the way they structured it was pretty smart on their part. They kept the cap hits pretty low, relatively speaking, on the first years of that deal. So that was a smart move by them to do that now, considering that he had all that success last season. But in terms of how that affects Brady, the way I see it, there are only really 3 teams in the running to get him. It's the Patriots, obviously, and then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are reportedly going to be really aggressive in terms of going after them. I know Bruce Arians, he wants a veteran quarterback to run his system, which is very complicated, very hard for young quarterbacks to kind of get a grasp of, and getting it better like Tom Brady can kind of pick up things right away. Could be something that could benefit them next season. And then the one other team for me, kind of a bit of a wild card, the Las Vegas Raiders, which they've been kind of rumored to be interested all offseason, but those rumors have kind of quieted down a little bit. But I would not be surprised if John Gruden makes a move to bring in Tom Brady. John Gruden, again, same situation there. He loves his veteran quarterbacks for his offensive system. He wants somebody that can come in and pick up all the complicated things that he wants to do in his scheme right away, and that's something Tom Brady can do. When you look at both situations there, Tampa Bay, it makes sense. They have one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver corps in the NFL with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans on the edges for them there, O.J. Howard at tight end. It's a very good situation for a quarterback like Tom Brady to step into. The only question for me there, though, is that Tom Brady isn't really a great scheme fit with what Bruce Arians wants to do. Arians loves to throw the ball deep on the field. He likes to be aggressive. And Tom Brady, he's not really that type of quarterback. He likes to get the ball out of his hands quickly. He likes to play a more methodical game, get the ball out of his hands underneath, and kind of take the defenses apart methodically down the field. So being aggressive, throwing the deep ball, nonstop isn't really something he wants to do. So I don't see Tampa Bay as a fit, although I wouldn't surprise me if Tampa Bay is willing to throw a bunch of money at him. But the really interesting team for me is the Las Vegas Raiders because they already have a quarterback under contract in Derek Carr, but I think the Raiders are going to try and move him this offseason. I don't think Derek Carr is going to be a Raiders quarterback by the end of this free agency period. I think he's going to be gone by the time he gets to the draft. And, you know, with the Raiders, they have a good offensive line. They have a running game. They're going to commit to the running game. They have 2 first-round picks in this draft. And with this draft class being as loaded as it is at wide receiver, probably the most talented wide receiver draft that I've ever seen in the last decade or so. What they could do is they already have a strong offensive line. They have good running game. They could get some wide receivers early in this draft with 2 first-round picks that they could have, and they could surround some weapons around Tom Brady and give him a good supporting cast to help him out a little bit because he's a little bit older. He's not quite the same in terms of physically, in terms of making all the throws. So having some talent around him is going to be something that he needs at this point, having a little bit of running game, having that support. So, well, I do think he's going to stay with the Patriots. I don't think it's necessarily something that's guaranteed at this point. And keep the Raiders on your radar this offseason. I think they're going to be real contenders to sign Tom Brady if they can clear up some cap space this year.
Yeah, just like you, I think that Tom Brady's going to stay in New England because I honestly can't see him in a different team's uniform like you said earlier. But if, like, he did have to go to another team, I think the top 2, I would say, is the Raiders and then maybe even the Indianapolis Colts, maybe. Because, like, they since Andrew Luck retired last year, Jacoby Brissett had to come in, and he did an okay job, but he didn't seem like he was that enough for like a postseason run with the Colts. So I think if the Colts were to get Brady, that would definitely help them there and push for a playoff spot for sure. Same with the Raiders. I think they could easily make the playoffs if they sign Tom Brady. But those are my best top 2 options, or top 3 if you're including the Patriots. But I honestly think he's going to stay.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the Colts because that kind of leads to another quarterback that's available this offseason. To me personally, I think Phillip Rivers, who has made it known that he's not going back to the Los Angeles Chargers this offseason, I think he's going to be the guy that signs with the Colts because when you look at Phillip Rivers, the head coach there, Frank Reich, he runs the offense. He's the head coach of the Colts. He was the offensive coordinator for Phillip Rivers a couple of years ago with the Chargers when they were back in San Diego, I believe, at that point. And Phillip Rivers had a very good year that season when Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator. So they had a good rapport. And I think the Colts are a good situation for Rivers because, you know, frankly, the Chargers, they had one of the worst, if not the worst, offensive line in the NFL last season. As we all know, Phillip Rivers isn't the most mobile guy in the world. You know, he's very much a statuesque pocket passer at this point, and he was always like that anyway. But now that he's a little bit up there in age, at 38 years old, I think the Colts are a good situation for him. They have a great offensive line. They just re-signed, I think it's Costanzo, their left tackle, who's been there for a very long time. They have Quentin Nelson at left guard for them, probably the best guard in the NFL at this point. So they're going to be able to protect him a little bit, keep him clean. And they have some weapons on the outside. You know, they have T.Y. Hilton still there. They have some draft picks in this class to address the need. And they have a lot of cap space as well, so they can go out and sign some guys to surround Phillip Rivers. You know, I think the Colts would be a perfect situation for him at his age especially. Give him some protection, give him some guys to throw to, and I think he's going to put up some numbers and get them back in the playoffs, which is definitely a real possibility.
Yeah, I think that Phillip Rivers is another interesting one to keep your eye on. Actually, I think realistically now him going to the Colts is very likely, but there was a team that I said I was making this bold prediction out from, again, this is about a month back. I had this bold prediction that if Philip Rivers goes to this team, I personally think that they'd be a playoff contender immediately and then make the playoffs. And honestly, I feel like it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because I feel like with what you said, Andrew, about Bruce Arians' system, that is a perfect scheme fit for both Rivers and Arians. They would literally throw the ball probably about 40 to 45 times every game. And both of them wouldn't even care. Like, they don't have a running game, but they would both want to pass the ball so much because that's just their nature. And I think, again, the Buccaneers, you are absolutely right. Despite Winston throwing 5,000 passing yards, all those turnovers and pass attempts, Evans and Godwin, or Evans primarily, has been a top 10 receiver, I think, for the last couple of years. Godwin broke out a lot this year, but you can't ignore the stats are stats. Both are 1,100-yard receivers. And like I said, honestly, I just feel like it's one of those things where I feel like it'd be a match made in heaven. Philip Rivers to the Buccaneers, I really feel like perfect scheme fit all around. These two would coordinate really well together. Evans and Godwin would be even more dangerous with Rivers than they were with Jameis Winston. But that was, like I said, that was a month ago. I would still love to see that because Bruce Arians kind of rejuvenated Carson Palmer in Arizona. And you saw Arizona that they almost went to the Super Bowl under Bruce Arians. So I feel like they could be just as dangerous with Rivers and Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay with a better receiving core that what Arians had with Carson Palmer in Arizona. But Andrew, I agree with you on this one. There's been a lot of talk since. Like I said, this is about a month ago that I was saying this. But right now, I'd love to see Philip Rivers go to the Buccaneers. But I think right now the Colts just make more and more sense for him. I just learned recently that he worked together with Frank Reich. The Colts have a way better offensive line. They even have a good receiving core, too. If T.Y. Hilton can stay healthy, I think the Colts make the most sense for him right now. And like you said, that protection is going to be key for a veteran quarterback in his upper 30s who's already been in the league for that long. I think right now the Colts are the best option for him. But, hey, man, if Tampa Bay gets them, they're a playoff team. My bold prediction right now.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with your sentiment there. Again, the connections, the offensive line, I think, do favor the Colts in this situation. But I can definitely see the Philip Rivers Tampa Bay connection there as well. Something else to keep in mind that Philip Rivers actually moved his family to Florida, I believe.
That could be a hint. Could be a hint.
Yeah, so that might be an indication that he's looking to go to Tampa Bay possibly. But, it's very – again, this quarterback situation this offseason is really interesting. Speaking of Tampa Bay, where do you guys think Jameis Winston going? Because he's a very hit-or-miss type of quarterback out there. I think he just had LASIK surgery for his eyes, so I don't know if it helps with his interception problem. Probably won't, but again, the first quarterback to ever throw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in the same season. He's a roller coaster of a quarterback out there. I'm not really sure what his market is because he's looking for $30 million a year as a starter, and I don't think any teams out there is going to be willing to give that to him. But where do you see him going in this offseason period?
Oh, I'll go. Another really interesting situation because, like I said, I had these scenarios kind of not necessarily panned out, but I was thinking about these really deeply about a month ago, and so much has changed since then. I originally thought that Winston would stay in Tampa, but I really don't see that happening now with everything that Bruce Arians has said, his uncertainty about the position, and him making the comment, we know what we're doing at quarterback, Winston doesn't. That pretty much tells me that Winston is not in their plans in the future. The eye surgery, I feel like, is a very interesting kind of thing that happened to him. Talking about, I'll bring him in for this one. Talking about it with my grandpa one time, he mentioned that Vinny Testaverde was setting interception records one year. He had the LASIK eye surgery, the same thing as Winston. It got rid of the pick problem. Like, Vinny Testaverde was a completely different quarterback after he had the eye surgery, didn't turn the ball over that much, and was actually creating a lot more big plays. So, honestly, it may be one hell of a crazy scenario, but Winston could be a completely different quarterback with this eye surgery. eliminate a lot of those turnovers, and I still feel like he's dangerous in that sense. But in case of where he goes, this is such a wild card. I originally thought that Tampa Bay was going to keep him, but now, man, I don't really know. Honestly, this is really, really hard.
Yeah.
There's so many teams that I'm trying to think of, but they have other quarterbacks that kind of pop up, and it's just like, what do you do? Where do you put him? I don't think he stays in Tampa, but I don't know where he would honestly land. It wouldn't surprise me if a team like the Chargers brought him in on a smaller deal, or even, honestly, I'll bring him up. Possibly the Bears could bring him in on a smaller deal, but I don't think the Bears are going to go there. I think they're going to go more veteran kind of routed. Winston is a wild card, honestly. If I'll just go this because I don't really know where else to go, I'll just say the Chargers. I think that they'll bring him in on a smaller deal to compete with, I think, Tyrod Taylor, since they made it clear that Taylor could be the future quarterback. But Winston is a complete wild card. But I will go bold, and I'll say the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I honestly think the Chargers and the Bucs are going to do like a little switch. Winston's going to go to the Chargers, and then Philip Rivers is going to go to the Bucs. So I think that's probably the best option for Jameis Winston to go to the Chargers, just because like everything that the Chargers were a playoff team 2 years ago, and then they dropped to 5-11. But I think if they acquire Jameis Winston, I think they could have a chance at making the playoffs there, especially since we don't know how he's going to perform after this eye surgery. So, like you said, it could eliminate a lot of stuff, but he still may also be the same quarterback he was last year with like all the turnovers. But it's a very interesting situation for sure. So, but I honestly see like how he could go to the Bears too. But like, I see him more realistically with the Chargers.
Yeah, the Chargers are going to be an option. I think their only quarterback on the roster right now is Tyrod Taylor. So, yeah, I don't know if they want to go with Taylor for the quarterback. And it's still possible that they might want to draft a quarterback as well. They have the number 6 pick in this draft. So, who knows what the Chargers want to do there? I'm not really sure. I think the Raiders could be an option again. I know John Gruden was a big fan of Jameis Winston coming out of college, so maybe he might want to bring him in and see if he can get the most out of him in a new situation there. If they don't get after a Tom Brady, for instance. I really don't buy the fact that John Gruden wants to keep Derek Carr as his starting quarterback going into the season. I just don't see that being the case. And you brought up the Bears, which is interesting. And I want to ask you guys, what do you think? Because, for me, I write the Bear Report website, and, doing a lot of work there, have done a lot of research on the Bears' options at quarterback this season and what they could do to address that during free agency. What are your guys' thoughts on the Bears' quarterback situation? What directions do you think they'll be going into this offseason? Because, I've done quite a bit of thought on this as well, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts first before I kind of elaborate on what I think their strategy would be.
So I think personally that it's a 3-man race, but more so a 2-man race. The third guy kind of looms in the background. I think the 2-man race right now for the Bears, because there's no question they need a veteran quarterback. They need a quarterback. Daniel, I don't think he's coming back. It's clear at this point. He's out the door. They need a guy to not mentor Mitchell Trubisky, but compete with Mitchell Trubisky to either take a starting job or literally like push him to be the absolute best he can be. But the 2 guys that I think are the most likely options for the Bears at this point are Andy Dalton and Derek Carr, like you just mentioned there, Andrew. Andy Dalton makes a lot of sense because the new offensive coordinator for the Bears, even though he's not the play caller, which that's a whole other story, if you know what I mean. If you're Bears fans, you know I'm not getting into that, but the new offensive coordinator / play designer for the Bears is Bill Lazor. And where did Bill Lazor work last in the NFL? Because he took last year off. He was the offensive coordinator for none other than the Cincinnati Bengals back in 2018. So Dalton, I feel like, would be a good fit there because Lazor is familiar with him. And honestly, I feel like a lot of these Bears hires have been about familiarity and signings because the one tight end that we signed this offseason, Demetrius Harris, played under Nagy in Kansas City. A lot of these other coaches have been linked to Nagy in the past. So I feel like Dalton would make a lot of sense if he came to the Bears, given that Lazor was his old offensive coordinator. Carr is a more interesting one for me, though, because, again, the Raiders just question marks at quarterback. I mean, Derek Carr has posted stuff on Instagram saying he can't wait for the Raiders to move to Vegas and whatnot, but John Gruden and more so Mike Mayock have been very non-committal and very iffy on that. I mean, Mayock came out at the NFL Combine and said that, look, we evaluate each position every year. If we know we can get better at them, we will. And so that to me was like not only a wake-up call for quarterback at every other position, but primarily quarterback because Carr has been under question for a lot of time now, whether he is the true guy in Oakland. The lack of weapons around him, it doesn't matter at this point because the Raiders want to win, and they want to win now. And they know with what Gruden and Mayock have been starting to build that they can get there. But Carr and the Bears, I feel like it makes sense. I mean, the Bears, I don't know what could link him, but it could be a random trade where I could see the Bears trying to pull one out of nowhere like that. And Oakland, they gave him a ton of picks for Khalil Mack. So you know what? Hey, we've done this before. Why not we do it again? That's personally what that kind of sense is for me. And with these two, I feel like Dalton or Carr, no question, you need to start them week one if you're the Chicago Bears. There is no competition. These guys have been starting quarterbacks in the league for 5-10 years now. No question, start them week one. The third guy I wanted to bring in the picture, who I feel like is kind of a low-key guy right now, is I don't think he'll be there, but I think you got to keep in the conversation, is Marcus Mariota. Now, when the Bears had Mark Helfrich as the offensive coordinator, I really, really like the fact that Mariota can come to the Bears under Helfrich, given that that was his coach at Oregon, which he absolutely thrived under. Now with Helfrich gone, I don't think it's looking likely now. But again, it's a guy who's seen the field a lot more than Mitch, and I think for him he's more of a mobile kind of Trubisky. Doesn't throw the balls on the field a whole lot, but he's better outside the pocket. He's good scrambler, and I think he could be a better, like I said, a more mobile Mitchell Trubisky. In terms of starting him right away, I think for him, you need some open competition because I don't know if he's better than Mitch at this point. We saw how quickly Ryan Tannehill changed the Titans around after Mariota kind of got booted out. But in terms of that, I feel like you need to get that competition, give it some thought, make it open. He's more the third guy. I don't really think it's going to happen now since Helfrich is gone. But in terms of either Dalton or Carr, I gotta get the nod to Dalton. So if you want to know where the Bears or who the Bears are going to get a quarterback, my final verdict is the Red Rocket. Andy Dalton's coming to the Windy City.
Yeah, so for this, I'm in the same situation as you. Like, I have 3, but it turns really into 2. I also have Derek Carr as one of my options and Marcus Mariota. And my third option would be Drew Brees, but he's already made it clear that he wants to sign with New Orleans again. Like, if that didn't happen, I could definitely see Drew Brees coming to the Bears, just because he's a well-known veteran and he's successful. So like, I could definitely see that if he wasn't like pretty much already signing with the Saints again. But if I had to pick Mariota or Carr, I'd definitely say it's Derek Carr, even though I'd really want it to be Marcus Mariota because ever since Mariota's joined the league, I hoped that one day he would become a Chicago Bear, but doesn't look like that's going to happen, so I got to go with Derek Carr.
Yeah, those are all some interesting names. A lot of interesting stuff there. I'll say with Marcus Mariota, I do not think there's a chance he comes to the Bears because him and Mitchell Trubisky share the same agent, and that makes things very touchy subject. I think we've talked about two guys with the same agents competing for the same job, especially at quarterback. That kind of, one guy is going to affect the earning potential of the other guy. So just because of that factor, I don't think Mariota is going to be an option for the Bears this offseason, although I will say my personal opinion on Mariota is I would not want to see that. To me, Mariota is just another version of Mitchell Trubisky. Both are very athletic. Both have good enough arms to make it work, but, I just question the mental capacity to read defenses and understand defenses, make quick decisions. Mariota has a really bad tendency to hold on to the ball too long, and that's not going to work for the Bears offense, which is predicated on making quick reads and getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands pretty quickly. So personally, I don't think Mariota, one, he's not going to be an option, and two, I don't think he's a guy that the Bears are necessarily going to be very interested in anyway, just because of the fact that he's just very similar to what Mitchell Trubisky is right now. And I think they want to, try to upgrade if they can, but try to get somebody in there that can be that can actually push Trubisky to actually get better this season. But for me, I think Derek Carr, I think he's the best case scenario. You look at, Derek Carr, people forget, 3 or 4 years ago, he was an MVP candidate. So it's not that this guy just can't get it done. He has the capability to win you get some games and put up some good numbers and be a reason why you're winning games. You haven't seen that with the Raiders, I think, as much just because of the situation around them. They went to complete rebuild with John Gruden the past couple of seasons, and his defenses every single year have been one of the worst in the NFL. So you put him in a situation, to where he has a great defense with the Bears, and I think they're going to be the Bears' defense is going to be better next season with the team Hicks back healthy. So that would help out Derek Carr immensely. I think they have some good talent with Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller, wide receiver. David Montgomery on the backfield is a good running back option for them as well. I think Derek Carr, he reminds me a lot of a prime Alex Smith with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know that's not a very exciting name for a lot of people, but Alex Smith, people forget, was very good in his last year at Kansas City with Nagy as the offensive coordinator. So could Derek Carr put up similar production with a similar place? What they're going to do at quarterback that's on season, it's possible that they may not sign any big name, but they might look to trade him anyway. So in that case, I think the Bears are going to have to give up one of their second-round picks, and, the Bears don't really have a lot of draft capital. I think Andy Dalton is going to be a very interesting name as well. I think the Patriots, if Tom Brady does decide to leave in free agency, I think they're going to try and go after an Andy Dalton as a trade option for them as well, because he kind of fits what they like to do offensively a little bit. So Andy Dalton, he's a very interesting option. You're hit the nail on the head there, Tyler, where Bill Lazor, the former offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, him and Dalton have a very good relationship together. So that's going to be probably the top two I think people are going to go to for the Bears this offseason. I'm going to throw one more name out there, though, that hasn't been discussed yet. Nick Foles from the Jaguars. Here's where things get interesting here. I know a lot of people aren't going to be very high on Nick Foles because he had a really bad season last year and he signed a really bad contract with the Jaguars. I mean, that contract the Jaguars gave out was absolutely ridiculous. That's one of the dumbest off-season moves I think I've seen anything make in the past seasons. But what makes Nick Foles a very interesting option is we've seen this precedent for this before in the NFL, to where if a team wants to get out of a bad contract at quarterback, they'll be willing to give up a draft pick of significant value to a team in order to unload that contract. We saw this a few years ago when the Houston Texans traded Brock Osweiler to the Cleveland Browns, and in that process, the Texans gave the Browns a second-round pick to unload that contract. The same thing happened with the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Bears. So what would happen in this case, the Jacksonville Jaguars could give the Bears a third-round pick or something of that nature. So the Bears take on Nick Foles' contract for one more season. I think Nick Foles, he only has one more year guaranteed on his deal. So, the Bears have to eat his salary for one more year, which isn't ideal because it's a pretty high number for a guy who's best suited as a backup at this point. But you look at Nick Foles and how he would fit the Bears. I mean, he's a perfect scheme fit for what they want to do. He worked with Matt Nagy when they were together in Kansas City for a year a few seasons ago. He worked with John DeFilippo when he was with the Eagles on that Super Bowl run where he won the Super Bowl MVP. So he has the connections there offensively. And Bill Lazor, he loves to run that RPO-heavy spread offense. And that's kind of what Nagy wants to emphasize a little bit more in his offense as well. Nick Foles is a perfect quarterback for that type of system. He's a guy that is going to make quick decisions. He's going to get the ball out of his hands quickly. He's going to give the ball to the playmakers accurately. He's definitely has a limited ceiling in terms of the fact that he's not a starting quarterback. He's not going to come in here and be the guy for the Bears necessarily. But if the Bears want to bring in somebody to compete with Victor Trubisky, push him a little bit, and Victor Trubisky struggles once again, have somebody on their bench that can take over and play at a high level, Nick Foles is definitely capable of that. And the fact that they would get drafted in the process of that, that's a very intriguing option that I think the Bears are going to consider this year if they don't get a Derek Carr or if Andy Dalton gets a little bit too pricey for them.
Yeah, I like your point there, Andrew, especially since we just saw today the Jaguars traded yet another defensive superstar. Calais Campbell is on the move to the Baltimore Ravens. And then Jacksonville, I believe, got a 5th-round pick from the Ravens, if I'm sure. I mean, are you even kidding me right now? Baltimore just won that trade, no doubt. A 5th-rounder for possibly a top 5 defensive end guy in the league? Are you serious?
Yep.
There's another thing, though, that I want to make it clear, and going back to this point that you were making there, Andrew, this is a clear rebuild mode now for the Jaguars. They are in clear rebuild mode. The whole situation with Jalen Ramsey that panned out this year where he was sitting down and wasn't playing, and they traded him to the Rams, got some draft picks. Then out of nowhere, not really huge, but an interesting trade. They got rid of they traded AJ Bouye, their other corner, to the Broncos, got some more draft picks there. So everyone was kind of like, what are they doing here? This Calais Campbell trade right here is a full indicator that they are in rebuild mode right now. They're not looking to be not competitive, but they want to start fresh. And to do that, I guess they're trying to do it maybe the Raiders' ways. Load up on those draft picks. Although they did not fire Doug Marrone, so that is interesting that they are still going at it with their same coach and same owner, too. Interesting. Going back to your point there, Andrew, I could see it. I could completely see the Bears jumping up on that opportunity for Nick Foles. The contract situation, though, that's a mystery. I don't know how they'll work that out, but I could see the Bears being that team that, let's get Nick Foles, who had one pretty solid playoff run, which they won the Super Bowl, hasn't done anything really since, but I could completely see the Bears jumping on that train and trading for him. Jackson will be like, here we go, man. He's yours. We're trying to rebuild now. We don't need a veteran quarterback like Foles. The GOAT, Gardner Minshew, is supposedly our man now, but we'll see. The options are evaluating. And honestly, I know this is taking a pretty big turn. I know we were in the kind of the quarterback thing, but this guy kept popping in my mind. He was my prediction. The Ravens actually were my prediction to land this superstar in free agency until this Calais Campbell trade broke out. I know we're taking a big change of events here from position. Jadeveon Clowney is the top edge free agent rusher this season and free agency. There's no doubt about that. And my prediction for him was to land in Baltimore this year, and he was going to get paid a good, solid deal. But now that the Ravens had traded for Calais Campbell and signed him actually to a 2-year deal, inking him through, I believe, the 2021 season, I don't see Clowney landing up in Baltimore anymore. And I got to know, where is this top edge rusher going to land? Because there are a buttload of teams that will be interested in him.
Yeah. Jadeveon Clowney is a very interesting case because he's a guy that he's not really a pass rusher necessarily, but he's a game wrecker in terms of just the fact that he's just great against the run. He's very versatile. He can do a bunch of different things for your defense when he's healthy. And he's starting with injury, which is going to kind of drop his price, I think, for some teams. But, there's a lot of options out there. I think the Miami Dolphins are probably going to be the most interested team for him. I mean, they were looking to trade for him last year with the Texans before they sent him to the Seahawks. So the Dolphins are very interested, I think, and they would probably – with the amount of cap space they have, I think they have over $100 million in cap space this offseason, which is just ridiculous. But they have the capacity to give him the biggest contract out of all these teams. So if he wants to go after money, the Miami Dolphins are definitely the top option there. But I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to a team like maybe the Buffalo Bills even, because the Buffalo Bills, they have a lot of cap space as well. They already have a great defense. You add a Jadeveon Clowney to that unit, and now you have a situation where they have a young quarterback in Josh Allen on his rookie contract. They have some talent on that defense already. Now you can really load up on that side of the football, focus all your energy in the draft on offense and try to get some talent around Josh Allen there. You have a situation now where that's a good situation where the Buffalo Bills could be in a situation to contend for the division. In that scenario there, I could see the Buffalo Bills being an intriguing option. And then one more team that could be a possibility here, the Cleveland Browns. They have cleared up a lot of cap space this offseason. I think they're going to try and get some offensive line help to help out Baker Mayfield a little bit. But their defense needs some help as well. They have some free agents there that they're going to consider this offseason. But Jadeveon Clowney next to Myles Garrett, I mean, that would be a very dynamic pass-rushing duo. They tried to do a similar thing, trade for Olivier Vernon last offseason. That didn't really work out for them. Vernon was injured and ineffective when he did play, so they're releasing him this offseason. Bringing Jadeveon Clowney, he's a much better player than Vernon. He's more versatile than Vernon. And him next to Myles Garrett, you have two of the most physically freakish talents in the NFL side by side with each other. That would be a very dangerous situation for opposing offense to have to face week in and week out. So those are kind of the three teams that I'm looking out for at this point.
Yeah, so those are very interesting teams that you have. And I agree with the Dolphins for sure, that they were very interested in him before the Seahawks, before he got signed to the Seahawks last year. And then I think the Colts are another option that he could go to for sure. And maybe even the Browns as well, like you said. Just like LeGarrette, just like all those guys on the Browns. Browns have like a really talented few guys on their team that I think would really fit with him. Same with the Colts and the Dolphins. They're just interested in him before he signed last year. So I think the Dolphins would definitely pursue that and try to get him to go to play for the Dolphins. So that'll be interesting to see where he goes from here. But my top two is definitely the Colts or the Dolphins.
I actually think that the Seahawks, there is a very good chance he does return to Seattle. But I think the question is with that, with Clowney, there's no doubt who's going to pay him the most money. He's going to break the bank this year as the top edge rusher that's going to get the biggest deal. Like, there is no question that is what he's looking for. Who will pay me the biggest contract? I do think he does have a solid shot to go win at Seattle. That's the other thing, too. Who can pay me the most money, and who do I have the best shot at winning the Super Bowl?
If he wants to play for a good contender, I think Seahawks are a good option for him as well.
I think so, too. But he has made it also clear, not only does he want to be on a Super Bowl contending team, he wants the money. And that's why I don't know if Seattle can necessarily afford to pay him. And their other edge rusher, Jaron Reed, they're trying to afford both of them, which I don't know. I can't see how that works out. So I think Clowney, in the end, he tries to return to Seattle, but they don't have anything for him. A couple teams that I'm looking out for here, they are different than yours. The New York Giants, I feel like, are going to be a player for Clowney this year. They got some cap space to work with. There's been a little bit of a uncertain situation with their edge rusher that they traded for this year, Leonard Williams from the Jets. An interesting trade that the Jets gave him away to the other New York team. It's pretty much said and done. I feel like that Williams will be testing the free agent market. But the Giants got some room. They've traded some defenders over the years, and they've got some in return. Most notably, Olivier Vernon. They shipped him off to the Browns. But the Giants, they have some room to work with here. And I feel like they are a player to contend with for Clowney. I think they could pay him in maybe the good around $20 million a year, something like that. But the question is for that, are the Giants Super Bowl contenders? There is no way in hell the Giants will be a Super Bowl contender this year. The Giants might have the number one pick in the league this year. I don't think they're going to be anything, but we'll see. I feel like the Giants will try and push hard for Clowney. There's also another team, though, that I think you guys might not expect would be a player for him. But again, this is a sneaky team. You're talking about it earlier, Andrew, the Las Vegas Raiders. I feel like are going to be another sneaky team that tries to push for Clowney. And honestly, I think Clowney is another major wild card for free agency. But in the end, I think that is what I think he'll win. The Las Vegas Raiders will pay Jadeveon Clowney a big contract to make him their primary edge rusher. And for all the people who said the Khalil Mack trade of the Bears was a bad one, this will put all that to rest when they draft Clowney, a top edge rusher in his prime who's going to get a big payday. I think the Raiders are going to make it work. And I think if they do get Clowney, this Raiders defensive line will be very, very nasty starting next season, because are we all forgetting that Max Crosby, the rookie from Eastern Michigan, was a major disruptor to offensive lines this year? Max Crosby was a freaking beast. And I think if you put Clowney next to him, this Raiders defensive line will be insane. I think, again, I don't know how they'll do it, but I think the Raiders are a team that works in the dark. They pull moves out of them like nobody's business. And I don't know. I feel like Oakland is going to try and there's one. Las Vegas is going to try to revamp their defensive line. And I think it's bold, but I think Clowney ends up with the Raiders.
You bring some interesting games there, yeah. You know, the Raiders, I think, are a possibility. It all depends on what they want to do at quarterback. If they want to keep Derek Carr and keep the status quo there, I could definitely see them going after Clowney in that case. But if they're going to be aggressive and try and bring in another starting quarterback, I don't think Jadeveon Clowney is going to be an option for there. You know, I think they're going to try and go after different positions this offseason. But you know, I think the Giants are a good team as well to bring up just because of the cap space they have. And the fact that Dave Gettleman loves to build his team in the trenches. But, you know, I think the Giants, I think they're going to be more interested in going after Jack Conklin, an offensive tackle for the Tennessee Titans. You know, Dave Gettleman, he wants to build his team to be a running the ball type of team. Jack Conklin one of the best blocking right tackles in the NFL. So I think they're going to be aggressive in going after him instead of Jadeveon Clowney. But that could definitely be a possibility. You know, I don't think he's going to stay with the Seahawks. I don't think there's a possibility at this point. You know, I think the Seahawks made it known that was a one-year rental. And if they were interested in keeping Jadeveon Clowney another season, they would have franchise tagged him by now. But the fact that they haven't tells me that they are already looking to move on. And I've heard some rumors that they're actually going to try and trade for Yannick Ngakoue from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who has made it known in the past that he is, you know, not going to play for the Jaguars because no one wants to play for the Jaguars at this point. He's already gotten franchise tagged by the Jaguars, so they're going to look to trade him at some point this offseason because there's no way he's going to, play there this season. I just don't see that happening. So that's another interesting scenario to bring up as well.
Tyler?
Oh, something just cut off right there. Wait. I didn't hear, Andrew, could you repeat the last part of what you said?
Yeah. Just so, just talking about, Jadeveon Clowney situation with the Seahawks. I don't think the Seahawks are going to go after Jadeveon Clowney, but I think they're going to be interested in going after Yannick Ngakoue, who, has made another one. He doesn't want to be in Jacksonville anymore, but I think they franchise tagged him already, so I think the Seahawks are going to trade for Yannick Ngakoue, but that's a very interesting part. Where does Ngakoue go? There's a lot of edge rushers on this offseason market, so Ngakoue is another big name to look out for as well.
Yeah, I just find it really interesting. Why did Jacksonville franchise tag him? He's already came out and said that he does not. He's thanking him for his time, but he's no longer interested in playing for the Jaguars. So I find it very puzzling why Jacksonville franchise tagged him. And he's another one. You're right that he's going to get a good deal done in free agency. So why Jacksonville franchise tagged him is a mystery, but
that makes no sense. That he's franchise tagged.
I have not heard that yet, Andrew, but I could very well see that too. That the Seahawks go after Yannick. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Nagaki. I don't know how he pronounces his last name. And it could be another sign and trade with the Calais Campbell thing. Ravens inked him to a 2-year, I think it was $21 million deal through the 2021 season. Mm-hmm. Seattle can do the same exact thing. But, again, I did hear, too, that they are trying to keep their other edge rusher, Jaron Reed. I don't know how successful they'll be in that, but I can completely see that there. Andrew, I think that's a good point that you just brought up there.
Yeah, the reason why you franchise him right now is because they want to get something for him. They just don't want to lose him for nothing in free agency. So you tag him and you try and see if you get a first or a second round pick for him in a sign and trade type of deal. Now, I don't know if they can get a first round pick for him because he would have to sign a big contract with the team in order to carry that out. But I think a second round pick is definitely possible. We saw Frank Clark. He got the Kansas City Chiefs a second round pick last season on a similar type of deal. Frank Clark for the Seahawks, they traded him to the Kansas City Chiefs. They netted, some picks for that as well, some second round picks. So, I think it's definitely possible that that's the game that the Jacksonville Jaguars are playing. But, they won't have that much leverage, I don't think, because, one, Ngakoue has already made it known that he doesn't want to be there. So they don't really have any leverage. It's either they trade him for something or he just doesn't play for a year. He's not going to play for the Jaguars or sign for them long term, and they're already entering the rebuild. So it makes no sense for him to play for the Jaguars long term in a year where he could get hurt and risk his earning potential long term with another team on a team that's not going anywhere. He's not going to play for them. So they're going to have to trade him for something at some point. So that's going to limit what they can get for him draft pick wise. But like I said, there's a lot of good edge rushers in this offseason period. Matt Judon got tagged, but you get Shaquille Barrett. He's still available, although I think he's going to stay with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at this point as well. Robert Quinn's going to be available from the Dallas Cowboys. Vic Beasley, although I'm not really a big fan of his game, he's going to be out there as an option. I look at Bruce Irvin from Carolina Panthers. Olivier Vernon is going to be out there. Just there's a lot of guys that teams can go to get that edge rushing help that would be a lot cheaper than Yannick Ngakoue. So I just don't know what the trading potential is going to be there. It's going to be very interesting to see.
Another name that I kind of had in mind was Michael Brockers from the Rams. There's another one to look out for.
Yeah, he's a very good run stopper. Dante Fowler as well from the Rams. He's another guy to look out for as well. I don't think the Rams are going to be able to keep him. So he's going to be on the move for some team looking for another pass rushing outside linebacker type.
Another player in the Rams that is on defense that's I think is going to be on the move. He's not part of the edge rushing crew, but Corey Littleton is another guy that I feel like is going to get paid a lot this free agency. I think it's pretty clear Corey Littleton is not returning to the Rams as well.
Yeah, I think there's going to be 4 inside linebackers that are capable of getting big money this offseason. I look at Corey Littleton, he's the top guy. Joe Gilbert from the Cleveland Browns is very good in pass coverage. He's made it known that he's not going to be signed with the Browns at this point. Blake Martinez might get a big deal, but I think Blake Martinez sucks. So, I mean, if he gets a big deal from some of the team, I mean, that's their mistake. I hope that the Packers give him $10 million a year to stay in Green Bay because he's a terrible football player. He just gets a lot of tackles, but that's besides the point. But one more guy is Nick Kowski from the Chicago Bears. The Bears have already re-signed Danny Trevathan to a 3-year contract, so there's no way they're keeping Nick Kowski at this point. So I'm expecting Nick Kowski to get anywhere between $9 to $11 million per year, even though he's a guy that's been a backup for the majority of his career, which is very interesting.
Andrew, I know this has been a while ago, but you brought up Jack Conklin. I'm wondering where do you guys think he's going to go? He's a offensive tackle for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, I think the Giants are definitely a possibility because they want that losing type of run-first mentality type of team, and that's what Jack Conklin does. It'll be interesting to see if the Titans can work him in. They're going to either franchise tag him or Derrick Henry. At this point, I think Derrick Henry is kind of the identity of that team in terms of being that power running back. But Jack Conklin is very important for what they want to do in the running game. So it's possible they might value him a little bit more at this point. So I think the Titans, the Giants are going to be an option. The Cleveland Browns are going to be an option as well because they had terrible tackle play last year. That was really the reason why Baker Mayfield took a big step back is because he couldn't trust his protection enough. To be able to go through his reads. And even the Lions, the Detroit Lions could be an option as well to get Jack Conklin since they released Rick Wagner, their right tackle. So I think Jack Conklin's going to have a big market. He can get anywhere from $18 to $20 million per year to be a starting right tackle. And I think there's a bunch of teams out there. Even the Miami Dolphins, they could be in the mix as well if they want to upgrade the right tackle spot. There's a chances, opportunities for Jack Conklin. He could go anywhere because offensive line play is something that every team needs at this stage. And if you have salary cap space, go out and get a guy who's at least serviceable. You're going to go out and get that type of player.
I think I actually agree with all the teams that you just touched base on, Andrew. There's one other team, though, that I don't think it'll happen, but a team to watch out for Conklin. I think this could be a possibility. Despite this trade, I think the Los Angeles Chargers could be a factor for Conklin. We saw an interesting trade a couple weeks ago. The Carolina Panthers and the Los Angeles Chargers swapped offensive tackles. Trey Turner got sent from the Panthers to the Chargers. The Chargers sent Russell Okung back to the Panthers. And the Chargers are hoping to ink Trey Turner to a deal that would make him stay a Charger. I don't know if this will happen because I think all the teams that you, like I said, touch base on, I think they could absolutely happen. I think the Chargers could be another factor, though, to ensure that they have a good offensive line. They want to stamp it up again and take Conklin as well, put him right by Turner. Keep that offensive line in check because you were talking about it also earlier, Andrew. The Chargers' offensive line was not something to be proud of this past season. There's a reason why Phillip Rivers got sacked so many times. So I think, again, the uncertainty of the Chargers quarterback situation heading into this season is another reason why I feel like they want to add another big offensive lineman to their team. I mean, Tom Brady's in the mix for a while for the Chargers. Teddy Bridgewater's been hurt. Jameis Winston, even guys like maybe Derek Carr. Some guys who might not even have been thought of for this team have been in the talks for their quarterback situation. Even Tyrod Taylor is being evaluated. And if they do select a quarterback in this year's draft, most notably Justin Herbert, I think the offensive line is something that the Chargers really need to improve on to ensure that whoever's under center for them in 2020 is going to get protection. And that actually leads me to another big-name free agent from the Los Angeles Chargers. What's up?
I was just going to say that, like, I agree. I agree with, like, the Titans, Giants, and Browns for Jack Conklin. But I also think the Jets are like a fourth liner that could potentially get him, because the Jets do like him, I've heard. So that'll make it like a four-way like tie-ish thing. But I don't think the Jets are gonna get him, but I think they're definitely in the market there.
Yeah, and going back to what I was saying earlier before Jack mentioned the Jets, there's another big name free agent from the Los Angeles Chargers that is going to hit the market this year that I feel like it's not said yet, but I think it's done. He's not returning. Melvin Gordon, Chargers running back this year, sat out the first couple of games, wanted that new contract, did not get it, and his play decreased, in my opinion, this last season. Melvin Gordon is in the free agent market. There's going to be teams that are takers on him. They still believe that he's got something left. He's young. They didn't produce well with him. And with the Chargers re-signing Austin Eckler, their other dual threat running back, I think that pretty much tells you that Melvin Gordon is out the door. So we're moving positions, the running back position. Where will Melvin Gordon land in free agency? Because I don't think it will be with the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, I have no idea what the situation will be with Melvin Gordon. I'm of the belief that you shouldn't pay running backs big money whatsoever in free agency. I think Austin Eckler, that's kind of the perfect contract you want to give to a running back. Make about $5-6 million a year. And Austin Eckler is a guy that maybe he's not a primary feature back, but because he can do everything on all three downs, he's the perfect guy that you want on your team in the modern day NFL. So, if I were an NFL team, I would stay away from Melvin Gordon like the plague because he's had injury issues in the past. I don't think he's all that great of a player anyway. And running back, it's been proven that unless you're a guy like Christian McCaffrey, who's a versatile, do-it-all type of player, or Le'Veon Bell, who's in Pittsburgh, these guys break down after so many carries. I mean, we saw Todd Gurley, David Johnson. The list goes on and on now with these running backs. Even Ezekiel Elliott, to a certain degree, wasn't the same type of player this last year. Once he got the big contract, these guys start to wear down after they get so many carries. And Melvin Gordon, he's already dealt with injuries in his career. I don't think he's that explosive of a back. I don't think he's all that great of a player anyway. I don't think he's going to have the type of market that he thought he was going to get when he held out last offseason. And there's other running backs I think that, you look at Kenyon Drake's going to be available this offseason. He's a guy who had a very nice end of the season last year with the Arizona Cardinals. Didn't really have a lot of carries under his belt, so he's going to be a guy that is going to be a little bit fresher than a guy like Melvin Gordon in the market. I think Kenyon Drake's going to get a lot more money than Melvin Gordon, from that standpoint as well. So it's tough because I don't think many teams – I think teams are getting smart about this. I think Melvin Gordon, I think the Dolphins, just because they have so much cap space already, that they can just, burn cap space at this point and just give away money to big guys to bring them in. So I think the Dolphins, just because of the fact that no other team is going to want to pay Melvin Gordon a lot of money except the Dolphins, who need to do something with it. They can't just not use it. So I think the Dolphins are going to be where Melvin Gordon goes.
For me, the best options for Melvin Gordon would probably be either the Buffalo Bills, Detroit Lions, or, like you said, the Miami Dolphins. But I realistically see him going to Buffalo to the Bills, just because I think he'd be a really good fit for them, and they've been struggling at that position. Not that much, but I think Melvin Gordon would definitely boost that position for them.
I could definitely see the Buffalo Bills as well, but also with Frank Gore kind of saying he's not coming back, I feel like the Bills are going to they're going to take another year to evaluate the running back position because their rookie running back last year, Devin Singletary, performed pretty well in that other running back role. So I think the Bills are going to hold off on the running back market for this year. I think they're going to evaluate Singletary and see how he does. There's a couple other teams that I have not really been talked about that I also want to get to. I feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a team to watch for Melvin Gordon. They have not had a solid running back situation at all. Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber have been their running backs. Just enough said right there. Nothing special. Tampa Bay has some cap room. I think they could jump on someone like Gordon, boost their running game situation. Maybe in effect to sign some sort of quarterback. Look, we got a solid running back. You won't have to throw the ball that many times during the game. But that's not the team I think he's going to go to. Another team that I could possibly see, the Washington Redskins. I know this kind of sounds interesting now that Adrian Peterson is still going strong, and you still got someone like Darius Geis in there too. It kind of got a multi-running back situation, but I could still see either one of them getting hurt, and then Melvin Gordon, maybe they come in and give him some cash, whatever. The Redskins, I think the Redskins are a team to watch out for no matter what under new head coach Ron Rivera. They can make some moves in the dark. You really don't know. But the Redskins are not the team that I think Melvin Gordon is going to. I think Melvin Gordon will land up with the Houston Texans this offseason. The Texans have been another team that have had very shaky running back situations over the last couple of years. Lamar Miller just signed, I believe, a year or two ago, tore his ACL in the preseason, did not play a single regular season game. That has to hurt. Their other running back, Carlos Hyde, that they traded for, he saw some action, but it's nothing too special. And Hyde has already kind of said that he wants out of Houston. Gordon to the Texans, I feel like makes a lot of sense because Bill O'Brien took over the general manager position, and I feel like now that the money standpoint is in his hands, I feel like he's going to try and upgrade the offense primarily as much as he can since he's the play caller. Although I will say I don't think Bill O'Brien is that great of a coach, and I feel like that's why the Texans are not better than they are. But I can't control that. O'Brien is calling the shots from not only the field, but from up front too. And I could see him just handing out the checkbook to Melvin Gordon saying, hey, look at this catch over here. You could be a starting running back. Now the Chargers are kind of moving on from you. Want to take it or not? Watson and Melvin Gordon could be interesting, and the Texans do have a killer receiver core as well. But again, I could really see Melvin Gordon going to Houston. I just think O'Brien is that kind of guy that, look, man, here we go. We need a franchise running back. You want to be the guy? And I think it's simple enough as that. But all the other teams, though, that you guys mentioned, I could definitely see. But I think Melvin Gordon will end up in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Texans are an interesting option. Just, I kind of agree with your sentiment towards Bill O'Brien. I don't think he's a great head coach, and I think he's even worse as a GM. So if there's a guy willing to pay a bunch of money, or waste a bunch of money, I should say, at running back, I think he's the type of guy that would do that. He traded away multiple mid-round picks last year to fix the running back situation. And Carl Ty was solid, but like you said, he's probably going to be able to move this offseason. So, I don't know if the Texans is definitely possible. I think they wouldn't mind making a splash there, although they would have to worry about paying a bunch of their other players at some point. I mean, I look at Laramie Tunsil, who they just traded for. He's going to get a big contract at left tackle. Deshaun Watson, you got to think about his extension coming up in the future. So, Texans, they're a possibility. But, man, I don't know. It's so tough for me with running backs because if it were up to me, none of these guys – I hate to say it because I want these guys – they have a right to get as much money as they possibly can. They have shorter careers for that running back position. But if I were an NFL decision maker, there's no way I'm paying running back big money whatsoever just because of the fact that a lot of these guys are very replaceable with the role that they have on their teams.
May I ask about Derrick Henry?
Yeah, I think he stays with the Titans. I think they're going to franchise tag him. He's one of those rare cases where he's such a freak athletically, and he's such a perfect scheme fit for what they want to do that, he's kind of irreplaceable for the type of offense they want to run there. So I think in Tennessee, I don't think there's any way they let him go after the season that they had. But even then, I'm not even sure they can come to a long-term contract with him because – again, it's tough with running backs. These teams, they're being a lot more smart about, do we want to pay these guys the big type of money? Because we've seen so many times before. Again, I brought up a lot of examples, but every time, a lot of these guys, when you pay the running backs the big contracts, they get injured. They don't become as effective. You see backups come in and play just as good as them. It's a tough situation there. But I think in the case of Derrick Henry, he's such a special – he's such a different athlete that I think he's a guy that is going to get big money eventually, whether it's with the Titans or somebody else next offseason. But for now, I think he's going to stay with the Titans. There's no way they let him go after this last postseason.
Oh, no, I think there's no way they let him go either. But the thing that I was trying to get at with Henry is, would you kind of pay him a big deal? I mean, that was the thing. You said you were not for paying running backs that much, but I feel like after what he did in the playoffs in the regular season, would you give Derrick Henry a big contract out of all the running backs out there?
This is going to sound cruel, but personally, no. I would franchise tag him, and I would run him as many times as possible into the ground. And, it sounds terrible, but, again, these running backs, they have a limited shelf life. And unless you can get another guy in there, maybe split carries with him. But I would try and take advantage of his prime as much as possible and give him as many carries as possible on that one-year franchise tag and let somebody else pay him on the free market next year because, again, the running back position, it's a tough position to commit to long-term. Me personally, I wouldn't do it. I get, he's just a perfect identity wise for that team, but me personally, I wouldn't do it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do fork over the big bucks for him. But me personally, franchise tag him, get one more big year out of him, and then let him go elsewhere. That's what I would do personally.
I would definitely franchise tag him, and maybe I wouldn't give him a low contract salary, but I'd give him like the in between like a smaller contract and like a larger contract, so like somewhere in the middle, just because of what he's been doing the past year, especially last year, and how good he was. I'd just give him a little bit of a boost in salary, but like I wouldn't go like huge deal, but I'd go like in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, he's an interesting name. I mean, like I said, he broke out in the playoffs. It reminded me a lot of the Kawhi Leonard situation in the NBA where he just kind of like broke out. Like we knew he was good, but we didn't know he was this good. And that's how I felt about Henry. Like we knew he was good. He won the Russian championship, but I mean, the dude averaged 30 carries a game. That's interesting, but he could have averaged like 30 carries and like 90 yards, 3 yards per carry. No, he averaged 30 carries and like 180 yards. Like, that's like 7 yards a carry. That's like, what? And this is supposed to be a passing game. We've heard time and time again that this is a passing league, and he's doing this in a passing league. So, personally, it's tough. I like your point there, Andrew, and Jack. I see where you're going with that, but honestly, after what he did in a passing league, I'd honestly give Henry a big contract. I feel like he's too much of a freak athlete, like you said, and what he did is it kind of brought the running game to a point where it has not been for the past couple of years. And honestly, like I said, I like being different. I mean, we'll see, but personally, I would give Henry a big contract because what he did, like I said, in a passing league, it was insane.
Yeah, two things there. I definitely get, he was so unstoppable. And the thing with Derrick Henry, that I like that you bring up the passing league because the thing with Derrick Henry is he's such a big guy. Defenses are going smaller and smaller to kind of match up with these spread out offenses and pass happy offenses that they're getting a lot more lighter at linebacker and things of that nature. So Derrick Henry, he's kind of the perfect counter to that as a big, massive bowling ball of running backs. So I get that point there. But two things there that I'll say on Derrick Henry and then kind of move on there. Derrick Henry was doing very good in the first two playoff games against the Patriots and Ravens. But what happened against the Kansas City Chiefs when they fully focused on stopping the run? They held him to about 3 yards a carry, and they completely took him out of the game. With a running back, it's a lot easier to take out a running back than it is a quarterback in this league or a pass rusher in this league. Running back, he's very dependent on the offensive line, on the scheme, and on how much attention he's getting from the defense. So I think with Derrick Henry, that's one thing to consider. And then we look at you bring up the AFC playoffs. I look at the NFC playoffs with the San Francisco 49ers, and they were able to get 200 yards out of a running back who just got off the street. Again, the running game, a lot of it is based off of the offensive line and the scheme and just type of offense you're running. And that's what makes it so tough to kind of want to give these guys big contracts, because you do have your special cases like a Christian McCaffrey, like a Saquon Barkley, like a Derrick Henry, but it's the market is not as high on these guys as they want it to be, and that's what makes it frustrating, I think, for a lot of these running backs is, they have only one chance to get a big contract, and a lot of NFL teams now, they're not willing to do that at the moment.
Yeah, that's a really good point there. I've never really viewed it that way, but like just by you saying it definitely opened up like my eyes, and like definitely like I see what you're saying, where you're coming from there.
Yeah, I feel like the running back situation it's interesting. Like I said, now being in a passing league, I think there's still more. There's definitely more to get to. There's another kind of position that's been a little bit more quiet this offseason, but you still have some guys that are out there, and that I think they could get paid again. Wide receiver position, like I said, this is a passing league. There are some wide receivers out on the market that have some very interesting scenarios, and I kind of want to get to a couple. The first one, though, that I kind of wanted to get at is Robbie Anderson from the New York Jets. He has been 50-50 with committing to the Jets. He kind of wants to stay there, but he wants the money, though, too. So this is another interesting case where Robbie Anderson, he's been the number one receiver for the Jets, but is he really a true number one receiver, or wherever he goes, what will his role be? So I want to know, Robbie Anderson, where is he going this free agency?
I think this is the Jets. I don't think wide receivers this year, outside of maybe Amari Cooper, but I think he stays with the Cowboys as well. I don't think wide receivers are going to make a lot of money on this offseason, because I mentioned it briefly earlier, but the wide receiver draft class this year is freaking loaded. Like, there's at least 10 to 15 guys I think picks in normal years, but they're going to be available to teams in the third or fourth round. I think teams are going to be looking toward the draft a little bit more to address wide receiver rather than in free agency and give up a lot of money to do that. So I don't think there's going to be a huge market for Robbie Anderson, but, I think the Jets are going to try and keep him this whole season, and I think eventually they're going to get a deal done.
Yeah. You go, Tyler.
I'll go. Oh, okay. I'll go next. I could see him staying with the Jets. Like, I could see the Jets kind of wanting him to stay because they want him as he's their number one right now. There's no doubt about it. And with the injury history of Quincy Enunwa, their other big receiver, that is also going to be a persuading factor in trying to make Anderson stay. But I don't think Robbie Anderson will stay with the Jets. I think there's a chance, but I think it will not happen. Again, there's a lot of teams that I could possibly see. I think the Packers are a team to watch out for him. Outside of Devontae Adams, they really don't have much. Another team that I could maybe see, but I don't really think it'll happen, the Carolina Panthers. They really don't have a loaded receiving core. I mean, DJ Moore is their number one receiver, and I mean, who's really – I mean, not to be mean, but who's really, like, heard of DJ Moore? He's not really, like, a big-time guy. There's a team that I feel like is that I don't think he'll be number one, but it'll be a step up from that. The Arizona Cardinals, I think, could take a chance on Robbie Anderson. Yes, they have one of my most respected athletes of all time, in my opinion, Larry Fitzgerald. He's still their number one guy, but we don't know how much longer Fitzy is going to stay around. I think creating more weapons for Kyler Murray is going to be a necessity for this Cardinals team, especially if they want to go into the air raid offense, which we have never really seen this type of offensive style come into the NFL. I mean, Kingsbury literally came from Texas Tech in college, where, let's be honest, the Big 12 is mostly air raid attacks, and with some other exceptions, like Washington State. It just depends on the coach, but it is never used in the NFL format. I think getting Kyler Murray, a big, speedy wide receiver, and Robbie Anderson is very important. And the Cardinals, don't get me wrong, they have other receivers on that roster as well, like Andy Isabella is a rookie. Hakeem Butler is a rookie. Unfortunately, he broke his hand, and I was very kind of sad for him for that, because I actually thought Hakeem Butler was going to be a really good kind of breakout player. But the wide receiver position is really up in the air for the Cardinals. Christian Kirk is another guy that is up there. But, again, no really stars out there. So get you a guy like Robbie Anderson who can go up with Fitzgerald right now. And then when Fitzgerald, whenever retires, there's a number one right there. And I know what you're going to say, Andrew. I could just predict it. Maybe not, but I think this would be something you point out. The Cardinals do not have a solid offensive line, but I think the Cardinals are going to use the NFL draft and get them a good offensive tackle like Tristan Wirfs or Andrew Thomas or someone in this drafting class to stock up and really protect Murray. But I feel like the Cardinals, I think they need a receiver in free agency. And I think Anderson is a good fit for them based on their system.
Yeah, no, I agree perfectly there. I think the offensive line is going to be the main need there, but I mentioned the wide receiver is a pretty loaded class in this draft. Offensive tackle is just as loaded, at least at the top of this draft class. So I think that could definitely be an option for the Cardinals as well. I think the Cardinals, they could be a suitor for Robbie Anderson. You mentioned a lot of young guys that they was recently drafted, though. Personally, I think they're going to go the route of trying to get some more help on defense this offseason, because their defense was pretty bad last year as well. And, just because of the fact they have Cliff Kingsbury, they have Kyler Murray in place, that, they're going to try and, have those two guys and the wide receivers grow together rather than try and go out and sign a guy to a big contract. So, but Robbie Anderson, he could be a good fit. He's a good deep threat, and they need a deep threat in that system. So he's a good scheme fit for what they want to do. He's pretty young, and I don't think he's going to break the bank necessarily either. I don't think he's going to be as expensive as some other guys would be on the free agent market.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there, and I agree with you, Tyler. I think he'll be a good fit there, and yeah. Is there any other things you guys want to discuss before we end this?
Nothing here other than I've been dying for this free agency to start for a couple months now, and it's finally here. We're going to start hearing, or our phones are going to be going off starting tomorrow because negotiating starts. I can't wait. This is in a period where there is no sports right now because of this epidemic or pandemic, whatever you want to call it. This is going to be the prime and center focus, so I can't wait for this to get underway. I've been dying for this forever.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. This is something with everything kind of shut down right now, that having some sort of distraction to kind of get away from all these other things going on right now is something that I know for me is something that I could use a little bit of right now. Looking forward to free agency. Looking forward to seeing all the chaos ensue. And, most importantly here, I want to thank you guys again for having me on to kind of talk all of these situations going on. We've discussed quite a bit of things here. So it was definitely a lot of fun to talk all this stuff over.
Yeah, no problem. So free agency 2020 is going to be very interesting, to say the least. It's going to be a lot of fun, and this will be a good distraction for all of us since there's literally no sports going on right now. So at least we still have free agency, and our phones are going to be buzzing soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Andrew. I love hearing your opinions. Hopefully we can have you on again because, like I said, I love what you got to say. I think your opinions are really, really good. Your analysis is great. I'd love to have you on again, and it was really fun doing this episode with you. So thanks so much again for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew. It's a lot of fun whenever you come on.
It's a lot of fun. You know what? The draft is going to be postponed probably, but when draft season rolls around, man, that's gonna be a lot of fun during that time as well. So yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun to talk some free agency.
Yeah, no problem. So I believe this will do it for this episode. So go follow our Instagram at On the Spot Sports with underscores under each word. So on underscore the underscore spot underscore sports. So On the Spot Sports underscores separating each word. And go to our Spotify, go to our YouTube channel, and listen to these episodes. We really appreciate all your guys' support. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.